All right.
Okay. Well, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Steve Yutz, and I've been in the club now just a little, almost 2 years. And I'm a past district governor with a lot of years in youth exchange. Um, when I was asked to look into this virtual exchange idea that RI had promoted, I don't know why it was, everybody started looking at me. So it's the one thing in the club that I do have some knowledge of. And I've spent an awful lot of my life working within the youth exchange program. So to get started then, the thing that I wanted to talk about with this virtual exchange thing is it's an alternative to the standard long-term, short-term programs. Where it's a little bit different is this program is planned to be facilitated to keep students talking on the right path. It's very structured, and the safety involved in it is as good as any of the safety items related to the long-term programs. Whereby the student in the long-term programs typically identify their own goals. We want to present some goals. So we have some very specific things we want them to work on, which in turn kind of starts replacing the knowledge that a student gains when they are face-to-face. And so that's one of the biggest things that is different here with this exchange. Certainly it's a much shorter duration, and we are planning to really enhance the cultural understanding, which is pretty much what the other youth exchange programs are all about. And we want to plant the notion that as these students get excited about what they're doing in the virtual exchange, that there are actually 2 other programs that they can move on up to. And I say that because we're basically targeting the middle school age, which I believe is 12, 13, 14-year-olds. So when they finally get to the high school, they already have knowledge of what youth exchange is all about. Let's see. Do I have control over this? I guess I do.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought was very, very important for the group I was speaking to, seeing that they are all long-term and short-term people, is that this program is not a replacement for those 2 programs. It doesn't have any scholastic component to it, so we're really not worried so much about how good a student is doing in school and those kinds of things at the middle school age. It doesn't require that host students come from a certified district. That was one of the big items that our youth exchange program has, is that there may be somebody in Africa or whatever that would really like to do an exchange, but their certification program RI leans on, and the other exchanges require both receiving and sending districts to be certified. We don't worry about that right now. And we really don't care where the student is ranked in school. I would be just tickled to death if we had some students that were handicapped in some sort of way. I think that would be a really cool thing. I've never done it before. It seems like they kind of get left out. There is no financial contribution by the student or the club at this point. And so there should be no reason why a student cannot participate here. The unfortunate part is that the language barrier that typically exists from US English to a lot of other countries is it will always be there. And in the long-term program, the students are required to learn that language. We may end up having to have a translator if we have students that don't know English, but I think we'll try to stay with that. The goals of the program is we want to have diversity and inclusion, and there's no color mixes, there's no aesthetic issues and all that kind of stuff. So everybody has the opportunity to participate. The meaningful discussions between the students of the different country, for some students, that's the coolest thing that they can ever think of. And the development of global competencies, again, I'm not sure how much geography and world history and that type of thing that middle school age students get, but certainly they do when they finally get to high school. And it would really be nice for a student to be kind of like ahead of the others as they move on up in their schooling. Certainly, if the student finds that he is interested in an in-person exchange, we'll have a sidebar and start working with them so that they can prepare for an exchange. And we are going to include in this program Rotary volunteers and past youth exchange students because they bring a world of knowledge, and it's a way that the students can feel like they're a part of something more than just the two of them. And we're hoping as the program develops that the clubs that are maybe involved even beyond us will have a little more visibility in the schools and the communities which we are part of. Let's see here. From a time frame perspective, I think that the program lends itself nicely to 4 exchanges a year. The program is only 5 weeks long, and I want to try not to conflict with much, and I don't know how I came up with this this little equation, but the 5 weeks will fall into the second month of each quarter, and the first week is when it will start. So hopefully the students will really enjoy what's going on and want to continue communicating with one another after the program has concluded. We're looking for 13 to 18-year-olds, though our target's the 13 and 14 age group, middle school, high school students. Actually, there are other learning organizations there around here. We have a homeschool program for students that don't want to attend public. And then I came across an interesting one just a couple years ago, which is self-schooling. And this is where a student has total control over their education, how fast they go. And there's a place certainly that if they have questions, they can go and get answers. And I'm not sure that I know very many students that would be totally successful here, but I do know a couple because we sent them out. The requirements for a student to participate is basically to have a computer of sorts that has video capability like we have right now, and relatively good internet connectivity, so you don't get too much of a lag in the transmission of data and voice. And the next one is really important, but they need to make a commitment to 2 to 3 hours per week online, plus whatever time they need to do the projects that are part of this thing. And so I guess that takes care of that one. The process that we are using to develop this is mandated by Rotary International, and we need to abide by all the policies and procedures that District 6600 has, which also follows what Ohio Erie has, and which also follows what RI has. So it shouldn't be any major differences there. The procedures require that anybody over the age of 18 that is dealing with these students need to be trained. They need to have a background check and those types of things, so that we have a pretty good idea of who is having that opportunity to work with the kids. We have an application process, and that form should be about done, but it's not very long, and it has fillable fields, so nobody's required to print it off and write and then scan and all that kind of stuff. And to abide by the rules, again, the parents need to be involved in this program, and there are rules, and both the student and their parents must acknowledge these rules and conditions and actually sign off on it. The personal data is really an important subject, and it's exploded in its requirements in the last 5 to 10 years worldwide. And so we need to be very, very careful of the information that we have, because it's all personal. Any of the pictures or whatever that's created by the students must be managed appropriately. So some things that we'll learn down the road a little bit. The basic process is, the student has interest, they fill out the application. Once we get that application, there will be interviews, both of the student and the parents, and just kind of see where their head is with respect to the program. They'll be able to select a country, and those countries are represented in our club. And so not near as many as the other programs have, but still pretty good. We're going to keep track of the student's portfolio so that next year or the year afterwards, should they have interest in a different type of exchange, then we already have some information on the kids. We'll match them up then with students that are interested abroad to participate in this. And then, like they say, you lead or get out of the way. And once the program starts, I can guarantee you these kids are going to be full of vim and vigor, and are just really anxious to get started. So I think I can't wait till it happens. From a supervision perspective, there are a few things that we do need supervision with. For oversight of the kids, there's a position called student counselor, and this person would be a go-to person that a student can use if they don't want to talk to mom and dad or anybody else. And so we've got the counselor, and there'll be other positions, facilitation portion of it, supervision a little bit with the projects, and they can't be very long because we only have 5 weeks total. So anyway, to get a good solid start on these projects would be pretty important. So that's where a lot of us can participate in that too. Again, I think we've kind of already talked a little bit about this, that it is really critical when we start talking about communicating via the web, that we pay close attention to the information that is placed out there, There are unfortunately too many people out to make life miserable by virtue of stealing information and that type of thing. And I'm still reeling from hackers earlier this year that just totally destroyed my system. And every time I go to my phone directory to make a phone call, that information is gone. So it's really quite inconvenient. The orientation, which is the first program, is where we'll take some time and we will do the training requirements for the students so they know what the program's all about, how they're going to work within it, some safety features, of course, introduction of all of us that are participating at that time, and whatever they need to really get started. So that'll be part of the very first, we call them meetups, when students actually get online. So, that's not going to take a whole lot of time. And then the rest of that first meetup, we'll be on our way to, engaging in the program. Right now, the countries that we'll be exchanging with are those within our district or in our club. And so I think it's a pretty nice cross section of what life is like literally around the world. So, following on in that first meetup will be a lot of introductions from them. And, some of the questions we'll have them ask and answered will help that process of the cultural shift and communications with each other. And, that kids I know have topics that they know very well, like what they do at school and what they like holiday wise and all kinds of stuff like that. And one of the challenges project wise will be for them to have a cooking demonstration. And that ought to be pretty good. And the only language relative to training is there's going to be a little section on slang and idioms. And it's very interesting from country to country that one particular term can mean 10 different things. And kids typically don't speak in the language so much as they speak in the slang. And if you don't understand some of that, you're going to miss it. So that's the only language component that I thought would be kind of fun to include in this. Let's see, here we go. So we've already kind of talked about the schedule somewhat, but there are 5 weeks. There are 2 meetups per week. We haven't decided on which date or time that these will occur, but we do know that as this morning, we're going to have a challenge getting kids in Australia that are 14, 15 hours ahead of us here locally and get the times matched up so the students can work among themselves. So anyway, this is an example of some of the things in each of the weeks, 2 meetups per week that we'll be using as our guide. Some of the service projects which they might want to consider, and certainly it's not critical that they use one of these on the list, but the service project can be something simple and something that can be done very quick. But others, like how to develop a pollination garden, for instance, might be a 1-year project. And so we can work at getting it started. And then hopefully sometime down the road, we can catch up with these kids and ask them how their project went. So anyway, I think there's a pretty good cross section of opportunity here for them to participate. So at the end, we're going to have some sort of an evaluation. It's not defined in its entirety yet, but certainly we'll get feedback from the kids and the parents as a starting point. And then we'll pull together any other information from the counselors or whatnot that have participated with these kids, so we know how we can improve it going forward. I believe in an everlasting improvement cycle because life does change. So right now, Chris is working with me to kind of start pulling a lot of this stuff together. And shortly we'll be talking about the jobs that are going to be required to make this thing happen. So that was the end of my